Hello, we are the Fish for Famine team. I am Alexa.
I'm Claudia.
Caitlin.
And I'm Veronica.
This month what we've done is we bought supplies for our fish tanks and also got the fish tanks up and running. And we got rocks and the filters and actual filters so we can clean the fish tanks. And we also started our 10-gallon fish tank first, and we've been having some issues with that, which we'll go into detail with later. And we continued our research on the countries that we plan on implementing our fish into eventually once we get the project on the road.
We left off in September with no tanks, no fish, and little to no information on what we were going to do. We had the tanks, we had them not running, and we had no future plans. But
our goals for last month, one of them was to get our fish tanks running, and we did that, as you can see back at our old room. Another one was to buy our fish, which we also did. We also wanted to make more contacts, which Alexa will tell you about later. And we wanted to perform one breeding session or one cross, which we were unable to do because of the fish deaths. And we also will tell you more about that later.
So what progress have we made? As of now, we have both of our tanks running, the 10-gallon and the 50-gallon. The fish are settling into the tanks, which requires them to adjust to temperature, which we actually found out if it's too warm, then the fish won't survive. And we figured that may be one of the problems we had with our 10-gallon tank and the fish dying. So we took the heater out of that, and now it's just at room temperature. We had some filter problems, which was mostly just obtaining a filter for the 50-gallon, which we now have. And we've also had 4 fish deaths of our larger comet goldfish. And there are many things we suspect. It could have been temperature, a disease. Our goldfish, they just die. We've made a lot of contacts, most of which haven't contacted us back, but Tetrafish is a company that actually contacted us back and agreed to pass on our Indiegogo campaign to hire up people in the company. I talked to an aquatic specialist at Petco, trying to get more information on why our fish were dying. And the lady actually told me about cycling our tanks, which means we have to put fish in order for it to cycle, and they have to die for it to cycle. And the more fish that are in the tank and kind of live in the tank are more likely to make the environment more safe for the new fish that come into it. And we've also contacted more people on Craigslist, which none of them have contacted us back, but we were hoping to obtain more tanks and supplies for our fish. We've also done some research on suitable environments for our fish to be implemented into, which we were looking at remote third world countries in Africa, which we probably won't do that because of religion roadblocks. But we are now thinking we're going to farm our fish because it would be nearly impossible to implement them in like an ecosystem that's already going, because it would ruin the food chain, because we don't know. We're trying to make a more powerful breed of fish, and it would completely mess with the food chain and the organisms that already live within the ecosystem.
So we've fallen short in performing a cross, which is essentially just breeding, because we've had time limitations as we've had problems with our smaller tank. Also, settling our fish took longer than expected, and we needed to do more research on the cycling of fish tanks, which we hadn't much clue about before it actually started happening to us, and that took longer. And our MSU contacts have not contacted us back. We've had problems with this last month as well. We're still waiting for them. We actually talked to the secretary, and she said she would pass along information because we couldn't directly talk to somebody in the Fisheries and Wildlife program. But we're still waiting on them, and we're unsure why some of our fish have died. We suspect that it might have been a contaminated net used at a pet store, or our fault, such as the filter or the heater. We're still investigating that as of now.
our goals for next month are to introduce larger fish to our larger tank where we currently have small fish, to give us a wider variety. We would like to continue mapping out and select a specific environment to put our fish into. We're going to continue to cycle our tanks, and if there is time, we will perform a cross.
Obstacles we've had over the month. One is cycling the tank because that has resulted to some fish deaths. Also another one is mating season, which only occurs in the spring. And for us to simulate that, it will take a few months because we have to warm the temperature of the water gradually and introduce them to a new diet, which they would eat around mating season. And lastly, the religion in some countries where we could implement these fish won't allow them to take food from a person of a different religion because it's against their religion.
Thank you for your interest. Are there any questions?